What's up, guys? Welcome to NDTV Canes all day. If you rocking with the U, then you know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss out on a video. This is going to be the weekly instant reaction. Miami beats down Florida State 52-10. It was ugly, and as always, I do these with my guys from Kane Legacy, Bill and Chris. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing all right, Grant. How you doing, man?
Bill, how about you, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Man, doing good. I think everybody who was rocking with the U, it's a good day, man. It's a good day. And not just because we won, I think because of how we did it, and it was a beautiful thing. So I just want to start off with asking you guys, we can go one at a time here. What was your biggest takeaway from last night? I know there's a lot of them, but what would you say was the biggest one for you guys?
I think right away, just the tone setting nature of the offense. Like, we've seen the offense be really good up to this point, and obviously it had some great stretches during the UAB game, and during the Louisville games where, like, you could tell, like, this is really clicking. I don't think it clicked like so consistently until we saw them against Florida State. Like, they were saving stuff for this game, and they were gonna, like, you know what, we're gonna score 5 touchdowns in a row to start this game. Like, that's how good this offense was. And they really just did whatever they wanted out there on the field, and going for it on like 3rd and longs and getting them, 4th downs and getting them. They really controlled the entire pace and attitude of this game from the very beginning.
The biggest thing for me was leading up to this game, on paper, this was supposed to be a blowout for Miami. Everyone was patting them on the backs, and in the past 10, 15 years, we've always responded negatively to that. We've come out flat, we've come out unprepared, and last night was different. We came out on fire. The offense was clicking. The defense, they gave up one long drive in the beginning of the game, but they were shut down pretty much the rest of the way. So we were clicking. Offense, defense came out on fire, which is something that we haven't really seen from this program recently.
Yeah, man, I agree with both of those. And I think, so much happened last night. Florida State, they just got destroyed, The word I want to talk about what this means for the rivalry, but I would say my biggest takeaway, man, watching this game, and I don't think there's a wrong answer here, but I found myself watching this game and I'm seeing Jalen Knighton get early snaps. I'm seeing Don Chaney run the ball as physical as he runs the ball. I'm seeing our young wide receivers, guys, we got some youth in this team. And then if you look at the quarterback position, Derek King most likely is going to be gone next year. But we got N'Kosi Perry. And I think what I like about the situation that we're in now is we got some younger guys that are learning from good leaders. So, I look at N'Kosi. He's learning from Derek King. I look at Jalen Knighton and Don Chaney. They're learning from Cam. Even when you look at the defensive line, Hunt is a beast. And he's been flashing like crazy. But then you look at a guy like Nesta, who's leading by example. What would you guys say to the Canes youth movement?
Well, I think, like, when I think about this team and the players we've had since the early 2000s when, like, we had that great run, is that we've had young players come in because they had to come in, because we needed like this infusion of talent. So we had to put guys out there, and usually it was at the expense of experience and at the expense of guys who are supposed to be leaders. But now these guys that are coming in, like, with, being under Derek King, who knows how to win, knows how to lead a team. I think these guys are coming in because they just are earning spots, and not just, well, we need another guy. Even like Zion last year, like, we needed a guy to play left tackle. But this year, even Zion got that start at left tackle because he earned it. Yeah, Campbell was dinged up a little bit, but Manny came out and said, like, Zion played great in practice this week. He earned that spot in the lineup. And you saw how he responded. He was dominant out there. He looked like DeBrickashaw Ferguson for the Jets some years ago. But, like, the guys are earning spots. And, when young guys earn spots in a winning program, that's going to be a 4-year benefit for us. And I can't wait to see where it leads.
And I think we're finally putting our young guys in positions to succeed, especially offensively. We're running a simpler spread offense, which they're used to coming out of high school. Especially a guy like Jalen Knighton pretty much can slip on right in, utilize his talents. We don't have to rely on him. We don't have to give him 20 carries a game, but he can get enough carries to make an impact. With Dan Enos, very complicated, wrong system for Miami. I'm sure that was talked about enough in the past. Even Mark Richt was relying on older guys, but Lashley isn't afraid to put young guys in, let them use their physical talent to make those splash plays for us.
Yeah, man, that was one thing fun to watch. It's even better. I was so happy that Manny put Jalen Knighton in the game early. I felt like he had some plays designed for him just to kind of say, hey, FSU, y'all could have had him, but we got him. And I think him and I think Chaney, they're going to be great. Miami just beat these guys down. It was – I'm not going to say I was shocked because I predicted this how it was go, but I think it's one thing to predict something and then just see it come to light. Just to see this, especially with how Miami has played down the competition in the past couple years. The only thing that people would say to me when I said this is going to be a blowout is you got to respect the rivalry games, the old cliches. What you guys do so good, and why I love your content is y'all look a lot into the past, past Canes teams, and y'all compare them to the present and to the future. I really love that. So I want to ask you guys, Miami wins their fourth straight. The fourth straight is a beatdown, 52-10. The most points ever put up in a rivalry. Is this demoralizing the rivalry the way that Miami's doing these boys?
Well, I mean, I think back to some of the games and rather than go back to even when Miami was really on top and winning these games in a row, I think of when Florida State was really giving it to us during that 7-game win streak they had. There was only one or two that was really you could consider a blowout, that we weren't close or even playing them tight in, which is why I was so nervous going into it. Not that they would beat us, but that we wouldn't look the way we're supposed to because it's a rivalry game and you have to expect it. And then I was watching Texas almost lose, LSU lose, Florida having trouble in the first half, Georgia having trouble in the first half. So I wasn't getting my hopes up too much, but that kind of win in that kind of situation with a Florida State team that's already going through so much, with regards to their head coach and issues with coach to players, I think it's going to hurt them for a while. And already the recruiting class isn't what I would call a very strong one. And if we're able to flip one of those two corners they have and bring them over to Miami's side, that's going to be a real shot across the bow about, what this rivalry is going to be for the next couple of years. And I think they'll get back, but just like we looked at the golden time and saying, it's going to take us some years to figure this out. I think it's going to take them a couple of years before they're Florida State, real Florida State again.
Yeah, this FSU team we knew wasn't good. I was kind of surprised on how bad they actually looked, just in terms of not being prepared. They looked slow. They looked weak. They were undisciplined, which isn't necessarily new for them. But this just didn't look like your standard Florida State team. And when you go out there, you beat a team by 42 points. It's going to create some distance, especially in the state of Florida, with their recruiting, even though they really haven't been that involved in South Florida recently. They've got a few guys like Dante Lucas, but they haven't had that presence the last couple of years that they're used to having. So this one's just going to further distance us from them. If they come down to South Florida, they really don't have much to sell to their recruits other than playing time. It's really hard to come down here and say, hey, come play for us and lose by 42 to Miami. But this team, the FSU, they'll eventually get back to being, at least a solid team. It may not be under Mike Norvell. I'm not sure if he's the best fit for them. But this roster that they currently have is bad, and it's probably only going to get worse as more guys leave and their recruiting suffers.
Yeah, and I think what people should realize is after this beatdown that Miami gave them last night, there's not on that coaching staff that Norvell brought in, and you've got to think if they have another bad season, they're going to make some more changes to their coaching staff. Not maybe Norvell himself, but maybe Norvell brings some more of his guys in. They don't have a lot of connections to the area, Norvell, He doesn't have any Florida connections. I mean, you got Odell, you got Dugans, but I honestly wonder how much longer they're going to be on this staff. So I think Miami putting the product on the field that they're putting on, I think that's going to help distance us a lot. Guys, you're listening to NMD TV. I got my guys from Canes Legacy and Canes Insight. Y'all make sure y'all check out their content. Everything will be in the description. Let's start with the defense because the defense was everywhere, man. It was everywhere. Tamari and Terry bagged. Quarterback Blackman running for his life. I mean, besides the first drive of the third quarter and the first quarter, they had no answer. First question defensively. I want you guys to stay on Coach Baker because I want to talk about the players with my next question. But my first question is, last week, a lot of people were going at Coach Baker's head. This week, he only allows 10 points in a rivalry game. Do we give Coach Baker credit, or is Florida State just terrible?
Well, Florida State is terrible, 100%. And their quarterback play, like I want to like James Blackman because I feel like, in a certain situation he could be a pretty good player, but just like they haven't progressed him, and he's gone through too many different offenses to really be much at this point, even to be salvageable probably. So Florida State's awful, 100%. And Baker, he's making adjustments to little things here and there that can tell you that he understands some things that are going on. I do think we still need to get more speed on the field, and he's relying on McLeod and Jennings a little bit more than he needs to, especially when you saw what Florida State was doing on that early drive. Like in my mind, and I even mentioned it to Bill when we were watching the game, like this is where you put Brooks in. This is maybe where you go double striker, because all they're trying to do is move laterally, get their speed on the edges, and they were having some success with, probable holds on our ends that were going on pretty consistently. But at the same time, there's also a lot of good stuff, like having Bolden out there pretty much the entire game, which I was benefited by Hall getting booted, but having him out there the whole game, as you could tell, he was the real leader of the defense, and he was playing deep more often than not. Letting Ivy be physical, all the Ivy slander we had to deal with early in the season now is kind of starting to slip away a little bit with how he's been playing lately and how he held down Terry and he really kind of dominated over there, being physical and using his body. So he's making adjustments. I don't know if I put 100% faith in him, but it's definitely better than where we were a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, agreed. But the thing with Baker is, I think we're kind of leaning towards this bend but don't break defense. He knows that the offense is going to be able to score points, so long as we're not giving up the big play, we're going to be okay. You look at UAB, we gave up 14 points. We only gave up 10 points to FSU. FSU is an embarrassment on offense, but holding a team to 10 points in 2020, where it's spread offenses and teams are constantly putting up 30, 40 points a week, is pretty good. Yes, we gave up 30 plus to Louisville, but we held them to 6 at half. They got a couple late touchdowns in garbage time, but this defense hasn't given up that many points. Yes, they've given up yards, and that's okay to an extent. But my thing with Baker is he needs to make sure that the best players are on the field and he's putting them in a position to succeed. That first drive that FSU had, our alignments were off. We could even tell before the ball was being snapped that that there was holes in the defense, that it could they had a numbers advantage on screens or in the run game, whatever it may be. But he's making adjustments. We haven't been bad on defense yet. So I think, going forward, Clemson's going to be a big test for him. If he can hold them to under 30, we're going to be looking pretty good.
Guys, now this is a question. I think I don't know what the answer is going to be, what the reply is going to be, but who is Miami's best player on defense? I look at the candidates. We can go with J.J. Phillips, who's been a beast every game, getting quarterback pressures. I know Bubba Bolden. I mean, wow. Look at this man's stat line. I mean, he had sacks, tip ball, interception. The tip ended up being an interception. And then I got to give a shout out to Nesta, who these guards, these centers trying to block him is just getting not only thrown out the way, but then I'm seeing Nesta flash like he's a defensive end, the way he's moving laterally. if you guys had to pick, who would you say is either the best or the most important player on this defense?
Well, I'd say my answer is going to be the same as it was from the very first time I saw him play a couple weeks ago, and that's Phillips. I think he's just that natural talent at defensive end. And, people are like, oh, maybe and some people are talking, maybe this is the game he breaks out. Maybe this is the game he gets this and gets that. I'm like, but, the way he plays the game, he may not get, 4 or 5 sacks, but you have to put so much attention to him on the edge that it lets a lot of the interior guys, like it opens up space for Nesta. You always have to chip it or put a chipper over there to help with blocking him. And we saw the play, how smart it was in that reverse that he dominated in the first drive of the game. So, he does a lot of little things that make you just say, like, oh, this guy is going to be a great pro down the line. I think he's our best player, and I think he's probably our most important player. But obviously there's a lot of guys that are playing really outstanding on that defense, but Phillips is my guy 100%.
My guy is Bubba Bolden. He's special out there. He makes plays not only in the passing game, as we saw with the deflection leading to an interception. He also got an interception later on in the game. But he's a force in the run game and in open space. He rarely misses tackles, but he's everywhere, and it looks like our defense is always on another level when he's on the field. In Manny Diaz's defense, safeties are extremely important. Not to say that any other position is less important, but there's a emphasis on the safety position because they're asked to do so much. And he's been answering the call week in and week out. And I would say that he's our defensive MVP so far.
Gervin Hall, he won't be able to play the first half of the Clemson game. Is that a big deal or no big deal?
It's a big deal because Clemson's always going to bring a lot of speed at the receiver position and obviously at running back. And no offense to Amari Carter, but he just doesn't have that next level athleticism that a Gervin Hall does. And I always think that Bolden playing next to Hall makes Hall a lot better. And not having him out there to be able to run and just kind of get in the lanes of these outstanding receivers Clemson has is going to make it a little bit tougher on us.
Yeah, it's never good when you lose one of your better defenders, especially when you're going against the number one team in the country. It was a silly targeting penalty to begin with. There was absolutely no reason for it, especially we're up huge in the second half. And this team is well aware that we're going to get called for targeting no matter what. So the refs are always looking for it. It was pretty obvious. You could even hear it through the TV, the helmet-to-helmet contact. But it's a tough loss. Hopefully, the other guys can step up and hold it down for the first half until Gervin can, return and get on the field.
All right, so the defense only allows 10 points. Florida State had 330 total yards, forced 3 turnovers. Is there anything that you like to see Miami improve on defensively?
I think second level speed is my number one thing. Having McLeod and Jennings are solid players, but whenever you have both of them out there on the field, I think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. I thought Gil Frierson had an awesome game, probably the best game he's had since he's been at Miami. There was a couple plays where he ran the seam and made a tackle in open space, and the guy who's just breaking around the edge, where you're like, oh, this is the way our linebackers used to always be. They'd always come forward, make a play on the ball, and cause these tackles for losses and force defense or force offenses into second and longs, third and longs. I want to see that more. I don't think I know McLeod had a good sack in the game, and Jennings, sticks his head in, but I don't think that they're quick enough and athletic enough to make up for when they make mistakes. I'd rather put a Brooks out there consistently, even maybe a Steed, and see what he had more consistently, just because they can make mistakes, but they have the athleticism and the speed to make up for it. And I think against Clemson, you can't make mistakes and be slow. So we got to have some speed out there for sure.
I'm going to say that we definitely need to improve on opening drives, not only in the beginning of the game, but in the beginning of the second half. This is now 2 weeks in a row in which Louisville went down, got points on their opening drive. They got points on their opening drive in the second half, and the same thing happened this week with Florida State. So when teams are running their scripted plays, they're moving the ball on us. Baker needs to come out and see if we can get a quick 3 and out, or at least get a stop on an opening drive, because we can't live being down early all the time. We get the ball back to our offense, and it's 0-0, and we go up 7-0. That's already a huge momentum shift in the beginning of the game. So those opening drives, while there's certainly time to come back and bounce back from that, but we can't constantly have points being scored on us on those drives.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a little tougher on those first drives, obviously, because they're scripted. But sometimes I like how we make adjustments. I do feel like the coaching staff, they make adjustments throughout the game, but you would like to see, especially, when the offense goes down and score, us stop them or vice versa. But we'll definitely keep an eye out on that, especially, hey, we're about to really find out a lot about this defense going up against Clemson. I think the one thing you need when you go up against Clemson, I think you're going to need confidence. And I feel like, hey, Florida State, thank you guys for the confidence booster, because we're going to need it going up against those Clemson guys. Let's look over to the offense, man. I mean, I really was wondering, is it going to be too good to be true? We go out and get Garen Justice. I don't know a lot about him. I look him up. But Larry Bluestein, he goes, listen, this guy is the real deal. You're going to love him. Rhett Lashley, I've heard of Rhett Lashley. I've known of Rhett Lashley. But you always wonder, well, what if now once you get to Miami, where you got crazy guys like me, you got all kind of content creators and then all types of the media people watching your every move, how was he going to do here? And then you bring over De'Aaron King, and we say, man, we know De'Aaron King got the 60 touchdowns in one season, but, was it a fluke? And we're seeing this all put together. The offensive line has not been accredited for a sack, for allowing a sack. De'Aaron King has been sacked, but O-line, and I'm looking at videos where De'Aaron King can go through 4 reads. We never had that before. I'm watching De'Aaron King, who is capable of running every play if he wants to. But not only is he patient, he's not forcing balls. You know what I'm saying? So he's not throwing the game away. No turnovers so far, I believe. And then I'm seeing this Rhett Lashley, the product he's putting on the field. But this is the second game where they were up by a lot and they pan over to Rhett Lashley and he's chewing somebody out. I don't know if y'all caught it, but there was a moment in the game where I guess the referee's mic was on and Rhett Lashley was like, if you want to be a part of this offense, get in the huddle now. And I'm like, I love this. So it's only game 3, but it looks like what we were sold on, it seems like we're getting. What do you guys think about the way that this offense is moving and grooving?
I think there's just a chemistry thing that was just natural when they all came together. And these South Florida kids, like Billy said before, growing up in that area, the offenses are all about speed and making plays in space. And as soon as the kids heard that, we're getting a guy who's all about that, but he's also willing to run the ball a lot. Use his running backs and to create mismatches out there. I think everyone's real excited because they knew that it was a great opportunity for them to showcase all those skills and all those things that they learned since they were playing the lowest level of football back like 4 or 5 years old. And I think that created buy-in. And once you had buy-in, then the offensive line starts to figure out, we have this coach Justice who, knows what he's doing. He was a head coach before. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's not just some guy who's coming in from the NFL who never been a college coach before. He knows what he's talking about. And I think they bought into Justice, and all those things worked really well together. And before the year, people were saying, why can we expect this line to all of a sudden be better? Well, it's going to be better because you have 2 things that work so well together: a new offensive line coach who has an attitude that's about, making it work with what I have, and an offensive coordinator who wants to do the best for his offense, so he puts his offensive linemen in positions to succeed. And it's all really clicked so far, and I think we have a recipe for a lot of success.
Yeah, Rhett Lashley's for real. I don't know any other way to say it. Back when he was hired in January, we watched a lot of games from him, both at Auburn, SMU, even at his short stint at UConn. And the one thing that he always did is he always called the game, put his players in a position to succeed. We saw it week 1. The read option against UAB was destroying them. So he just kept running it. And we ran for 330 plus yards. against Louisville, they take away the run and they force King to throw. So, King dots him up. Lashley called, easy kind of throws. Really got Brevin Jordan, involved as well, which is always a big X factor. But he's going to call the game depending on what the defense is doing. He has a great feel, for play calls. He kind of knows when to call those kind of trick plays, those counter plays. So he's for real, especially when you pair him with King. He's such a dynamic athlete. And even, he can throw the ball too, which is the best part. Lashley's playbook is completely open. King can make any throw, and we know what he can do with his legs. So this is only the beginning. I feel like we're going to be in store for a real treat as the season progresses.
So you're looking at this offense. We got to talk about the receiving core. I thought the receivers, they did better. We still had a couple drops. Mark Pope with 5 receptions for 60 yards. D. Wiggins with the big 40-yard touchdown where he left the guy in the dust. And Mike Harley had 7 receptions, a lot of big catches. And we know we got our tight ends, but when I look at this team, I think it's one thing that we're missing, and that's deep vertical passing game, to where teams are going to be afraid to press us man, because I think now the game plan may be, hey, let's see if they can beat us over the top. Are you guys, is that a consensus? Are you worried about our vertical passing game? Because, I'm seeing, missed timing. I'm seeing it looks like either King's throwing the wrong route or the receivers throwing or running the wrong route, or it's just an overthrow. What do you guys think about that?
I do think had we had the spring to really settle things down, I think the timing would be better on the deep throws. That's the hardest thing to get a measure of. You can pretty much get the timing on quick comeback routes and slant routes, because a lot of that is just visual. But to understand how a kid's speed changes as he goes, he's running those deep routes down the sideline. It's difficult to adjust to, especially in game when the adrenaline gets a little bit more flowing. And I also think that we have to be mindful of these receivers that we have. It's not like they're superstar 5-star recruits that are coming in and can do everything. I think Wiggins is best when he's running downfield, and he's shown it a couple of times. He's pretty adept at finding the ball and making a play on it. Then we have, the Mike Harleys of the world, who are really not great when they are down the field. Despite the fact that he's got great speed and everything, he's really more of an underneath receiver who you can kind of rely on in short areas. But I think he kind of second guesses himself on those longer throws, and once he got in his head with the drops yesterday, it was a disaster. And I think Pope is kind of somewhere in between, where he has to build his own confidence up, and then he can do anything. But until he gets it going in the right mindset, he has trouble. So I would like to see the deep game more. I think you only have one guy that's really, really great at it, and that's Wiggins. And you have to figure out ways of kind of manufacturing it as much as possible.
All our receivers, Pope, Wiggins, Harley, specifically, they all can run. So they're always going to be somewhat of a threat, to make plays downfield. It's going to come a time, as Chris said. We'll take more chances. If they're going to leave us one-on-one, we're going to hit some, and defenses are going to adjust to that. But Wiggins, I would say he's probably, even though we don't have a true number one, he's probably our number one guy, just in terms of size, speed. Harley, Pope, they both had struggles with drops. They're not the best with kind of those 50-50 balls. They're not good with contact either. But Wiggins can run by a defender, and that can really stretch the defense. We'll see if any of these young freshmen can step up and provide the deep threat. Like Keyshawn Smith. I don't foresee Xavier Strepo being a downfield guy, but Michael Redding has the size, may not have the blazing speed, but he certainly has the physicality to go up and get a 50-50 ball. So we may see some of those guys emerge as well later.
What y'all think about Michael Redding play? It seems like, I don't have the official how many snaps he played, but it seemed like he got in the game early. He got him a touchdown. I saw a couple plays where he was blocking his tail off. What's the ceiling for Michael Redding, and do you think he's the the next up and coming wide receiver. We got Pope, Wiggins, Harley. They're right now getting the majority of the snaps. Is it going to be? We're thinking Michael Redding's going to be that next guy.
I think Redding is the most prepared, like physically, to play, and I think him being at IMG doesn't hurt either, because that they kind of prepare their kids for the college game through everything they do with the weight room and all that. I think he's probably the guy that I would say should step in first. I think in terms of overall talent, I might go Keyshawn Smith, because I think Smith has that deep threat in him that I don't know if Redding is necessarily. But at the same time, I think Redding can go out there and make some pretty good plays, especially like Billy said, his physicality is kind of next level already, where the other guys don't have that. So I understand why he'd be the first one off the bench to step in case someone goes down. But I do think he and Smith as a pair are going to be great going into the future. And then I think you add in Restrepo as more of a slot guy, and then even Mammarelli at tight end. I think he can do some things. So I think, but Redding is the first guy off the bench now. But over time, I think Keyshawn Smith, once he gets more confidence, is going to be the best of the freshmen.
Redding looks like a grown man out there as a true freshman. He's already pretty much physically developed. His main thing is going to have to be learning the ins and outs of the position, the finer details. But physically, he's there, and I'm not surprised he was the first freshman to see the field, just because he can provide that blocking presence and that physical presence, which we really don't have in that wide receiver room. So I think we're going to see more and more of him as the season goes on. And by the end of the year, it wouldn't surprise me if he's, our number 2 or number 3 guy.
All right. So we talked about the vertical passing game. Cameron Harris, man. I mean, this man is just a man amongst boys out there. What are you guys' thoughts on Cameron Harris? I mean, I look at him as not only one of our best players, but I feel like he has the most important position, because we have 2 good young backs behind him, and he can mentor these guys, and Cam's leading with leadership. So what are your thoughts on Cameron's play?
He's a great role model for those guys for sure. Like his body type is straight up professional NFL running back. He's thick. His lower body is like strong, sturdy. It's very rare that an arm tackle will get him down, and usually like he breaks at least one arm tackle as soon as he either gets through the line, or if a guy's got him in the backfield. I think Billy Sayers makes like 1 or 2 of those plays where it's like they have him in the backfield and he breaks one tackle, reverses field a little bit, finds a hole, and pulls out 12 yards. And that's on a broken play. And then whenever he has a gap or a little bit of an angle, he takes it and he goes. I mean, I was watching him yesterday, and I was thinking about how much he resembles Ray Rice from the Ravens. Same kind of body style, same kind of speed, where like maybe time isn't great, but when you see him in person in a football game, like he can run away from people, and that's the kind of guy that can be an NFL starting running back for 6-7 years or whatever you need him to. So I'm excited to see what he does this year, and I know he's going to leave the room in great hands.
He's just a football player. He may not do anything super elite, but he's tough, he's smart. He has enough speed to make plays. He just has a knack for it as well. So he kind of seems like he's kind of the heart and soul of the offense. Kind of revolves around him. He's had super big explosive plays throughout his career. He came in with 5-star Lorenzo Lingard, who ended up transferring to the school up north because he couldn't get on the field. And one of those reasons why is because Cam Harris took his lunch money and also his carries. So I'm excited for him. He's going to be an NFL player. He's going to make an impact on Sundays. I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the season because he's gone after this.
If y'all had to compare him to a past Miami Hurricane, who would it be? I know you guys do that a lot. Who would be the past Miami Hurricane that Cameron Harris plays like?
I think we did last year. We went through a couple of the players, and I'm pretty sure the first instinct I have now is I'm pretty sure we did last year, and that's James Jackson from the late 90s, early 2000s. Another guy who, like Billy said, doesn't do anything like super, super elite. Like you can't compare someone to McGahee unless he has that like elite speed. You can't compare someone to Portis unless he's like an absolute guaranteed playmaker, But James Jackson was a guy who, fittingly was ahead of your Clinton Portises of the world and your Frank Gores of the world. And but he kept making plays and he kept having good runs and he was just strong and sturdy and you knew you could throw 20 carries on his back and he would say, yes, sir, no problem, coach. And while James Jackson didn't have like the greatest NFL career, he had a shot and for a couple of years was a starting running back. I think he's that kind of guy who you can just rely on to get all the things done that you need to get done.
Yeah, the running back by committee, so to say, with the loaded backfields we used to have. James Jackson still got carries over some pretty talented backs, and I see the same thing with Harris with Knight and Chaney behind him, who are going to be two special guys here. So I think that James Jackson comp fits pretty well.
All right, guys, we got the guys from Kane's Legacy. Make sure you check out their content. As you can see, they know their stuff. All their information will be in the description. Guys, this time last year, Manny was taking a lot of heat. He started the season off 0-2. And then, the only really good thing about last year was that, he beat Florida State. So now he's 2-0 against Florida State. At the end of the year, this man, we were giving him heat. I was giving him heat. Looking at where he is now, 3-0, what are your thoughts on Manny Diaz as the head coach of Miami?
Well, the first thing is you have to ask yourself, what did he do to make the program better between then and now? A lot of coaches, they'll kind of they'll ride it out and they'll say my plan's working. You maybe didn't see it, but I saw it. I saw improvement. I saw some successes. I saw enough to keep moving down the road. But a lot of times that guy he ends up not really moving down the road very far because he's so passionate about his own way. Manny brought guys in. Manny thought he had something on offense. Manny felt confident. And then when it didn't work last season, Manny didn't waste any time. He got rid of people. And, everyone was like, well, we should get rid of more people. But Manny was like, no, I need to get rid of these guys. I'm going to bring new guys in. I'm going to change the offense up. And, Manny knew that it was his job. Manny knew that this was probably going to be his one good shot as a head coach. And he wasn't going to let somebody else ruin that for him. And he made all the changes he had to make. And, that's all I would want from a head coach, especially someone like Manny who can be that, overall CEO of the program. He did exactly what I asked for. So until he goes against me now, I'm riding with Manny.
Yeah. The one thing with Manny, even going back to when he was a defensive coordinator, is he's not afraid to make changes. He's not stubborn like we've seen past coaches, whether it was Al Golden in that defense or Mark Richt wanting to call his own offense. In the beginning, his defenses weren't great covering the slot. Third downs were an issue. He introduced the striker position, and he's constantly been tweaking the defense, doing different things to improve it. He's doing the same thing as a head coach. Like Chris said, we cleared house on offense. He made a bad hire with Dan Enos. He got fooled by that. Hey, he's from Alabama. He's the next great thing. Bad hire. I'm not ready to throw the towel in on that. But he brought in Rhett Lashley, who's a dominant OC. But I'm not ready to crown Manny yet. We're only 3-0. We haven't really faced the greatest competition. Louisville lost the Pitt yesterday. FSU's a dumpster fire. UAB is a G5 program. So yeah, we're 3-0. We're number 8. But we still have a long way to go, and Manny still has a long way to go to prove himself.
And I agree with that. I think what I will say is, and I'm telling you, if y'all look at last year's content, I was giving Manny all types of heat. But I like what you guys said basically is he saw what was wrong and he wasn't stubborn. He went out and made mistakes. He went out and got De'Aaron King. He went out and got Rhett Lashley. He went out and got Garen Justice. He said, okay, this is why we didn't win. I'm going to make changes to make sure we did win. I also want to point out a couple other things that I'm starting to like about Manny. Now, I'm with you, Bill. You still got to win because that's the most important thing. We still got to win. We're 3-0. We just beat down Florida State. Manny's 2-0 against Florida State. I think if he keeps winning, we're going to be good, But I look at how he's handling things as a coach. Making the changes he needed to make. When the COVID situation happened, I'm listening to the things that Manny is saying, the things that Manny's telling these players, and as of right now, the Miami Hurricanes football team has done a great job at not letting the COVID affect them, and like Manny has said, it's about making the right decisions. And I think that's important of your head coach to preach that to the players. Even in the post-game presser, the first thing he said is, listen, before we play Clemson, we got to defeat the bye week, which means we got to make sure players aren't going out doing crazy things with the COVID. I also will say Manny was one of the first people to speak up on the social injustice. Whether you agree with it or you don't, the players felt a certain way about that, and Manny was there to back his team and back his players. And then I see stuff like on Twitter where our former fullback, Realist George, he's tweeting out Manny Diaz is going to win Coach of the Year. Go Manny Diaz. And I think it says a lot to you about what players who've transferred from the program has to say about the coach. Because a lot of times they transfer and you may get these different shots and things like that. But to see, anytime a past player is talking about Manny, they love Manny. And of course, players aren't going to come out and bash their head coach. But a realist George on Twitter, he doesn't owe the program anything. He could say, hey, the guy wasn't legit. I've seen players do that. Hey, we've seen Florida State players call out the head coach who's the head coach right now. So I think Manny is trending up in my book. He's definitely doing a lot that I like. And, long as you keep winning, things are going to be great, I think. And just got to keep winning and keep making the changes that we need to make. The big topic now is, hey, and we talked about this before, is, hey, Rhett Lashley may not be here more than a year. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I'm saying, hey, throw the book at him. Get this man a check. Do what you got to. Set up the GoFundMe. I'll throw in some change because I love what I'm seeing. How long do you guys think Rhett's going to be here?
Well, honestly, I think it's as long as he wants to be an offensive coordinator. He'll get a head coaching job offer somewhere. I don't know how high of a level it'll be, just because of just the one extra year at Miami at the super super high level. He's just a very short time removed from UConn, and then a disastrous, not maybe a weird ending to his time at Auburn, where it was kind of like an issue between he and Malzahn about who was going to call the plays and all that. So there's been some weird ups and downs to his ascent so far as a coach. I do think some people will offer him jobs. I don't know if it's going to be at a level high enough for him to say, okay, that's where I want to go take my career right now. Especially because he has a young family, maybe a 1 year stop on the heels of a 1 year stop isn't going to be his thing, to keep moving his family around. Maybe we'll get a second year out of him, but I think that's probably going to be it. I'm hoping honestly that he comes back for one more. We get De'Aaron King for one more. De'Aaron decides to, try to boost his stock some more for the league, come back for one more season, then we make a run in 2021, starting off with Bama. That's my ideal situation. And I do think it's possible, because if Miami beats Bama and makes a run in 2021 for a national championship, Lashley's probably going to have his pick of just about any job he wants in this country. So that's certainly what I'm hoping for.
My gut reaction said 2 years. I think the whole COVID situation is actually going to help us maintain him for at least another year. With the financial situations that a lot of programs are facing, they may not be willing to buy out, a head coaching contract at this point. And also, Rhett Lashley has a young family. I believe he has 4 kids under the age of 10. So maybe not wanting to move them around so much could play a role. But I just don't think that the jobs are going to be available this offseason that he would want. If a program like Southern Miss, who has an interim head coach right now, offers him a job, does he say yes and goes there? Or does he say, maybe I'll wait another year? I'll hang out in Miami and wait for an SEC or an ACC program to come calling. But I think we're going to reach a point where he's going to have his pick of whatever job he wants if he stays at Miami. And I think that's what he's going to end up doing. He's going to hang around for at least another year and really evaluate his options and find the fit that's best for him. Whether that's ACC, SEC, going back to Texas. But I don't think he's going to settle for a really low-tier G5 type school to be the head coach of.
Hey, I mean, I think Rhett Lashley's getting a lot of love. I mean, hey, you stay here. We're going to give you the money. We're going to give you the love. You ain't even got to go be a head coach and deal with all that. Speaking of Rhett Lashley, let's talk about something I've been hearing a lot. And I want y'all to let me know if is this statement an overreaction or not an overreaction, and tell me why. Is this an overreaction or not? People are saying this. Miami is catching lightning in a bottle. They got De'Aaron King. They got Rhett Lashley. After this year, they're going to go back to being mediocre. Is it an overreaction or not?
I think it's an overreaction because I think the culture is coming right along hand with it. And like we said, earlier in the conversation, that the young guys are seeing the success of these older guys and De'Aaron King and all that. And they're going to start like living up to that mentality because they want to be leaders down the line. And a lot of these guys we have aren't seniors, so like the Gil Fryerson's going to be back. The corners are probably going to be back. I would imagine Hall's going to be back at safety. The linemen are going to be back. So a lot of these guys who are having success this year, they'll be back. And once they see what it takes to win, then they can push that on to the next generation. I think finding another quarterback if King leaves is obviously fundamental, and whether that's N'Kosi Perry or not, we'll have to figure it out by the time the season's over. But if we can find another quarterback, even if we were to lose Lashley, which like Billy said, I don't think we're going to do, I think we can still keep it going, especially with guys in house that are former offensive coordinators and head coaches that could potentially take over.
I think it's a slight overreaction. Whenever King decides to leave, whether it's this year or if he comes back for next year, whenever he leaves, we're going to take a step back on offense. Does that mean we're going to go back to sucking and being a 500 team? I don't think so. I think we'll still be a winning program. We'll still be competing in the ACC, but you don't replace a talent like King very easily. And like Chris said with Lashley, we have guys that can provide some continuity and likens and justice. They both called plays before, so it should be a pretty seamless transition if that's the route that Manny Diaz wants to go when Lashley leaves, or if he wants to go out and get another young OC. But we certainly have options inside the program that could lead a very explosive and potent offense.
Let me ask you this: are y'all next year? I mean, this is looking far ahead. But if De'Aaron King decides to leave N'Kosi Perry as the starter, are y'all okay with that, or what are y'all thoughts about N'Kosi in this offense? I look at it as this: I think N'Kosi has dealt with several different offensive coordinators. Him being behind King is going to do is going to help him out a lot. And this year, he's actually going to get to sit back for a full season and get this offense down to a T. Came into the game, got him a nice little touchdown. N'Kosi Perry as the future starter. What do you guys say, or do y'all want to hit the portal?
If King goes, I think we're going to go to the portal regardless. Even if there is like a thought that N'Kosi is the guy, it's hard to say that we can't go into next year just saying, it's him, unless he shows us something this year, like which God forbid, like an injury to King or something later in the year. I think it would be silly to go into next year without looking out there, because quarterbacks are watching this situation. They're going to watch King, and they're going to say that's an offense for me, especially if Lashley's sticking around. So we're going to have some options to bring some people in as grad transfers. So it would just be kind of a waste of the potential opportunity there. I would like to see Kosi be the guy. I think he's got the athleticism to do it well. I've seen him make throws that, like this is a pro level throw. Kind of like, years ago when Stephen Morris was out there. Stephen Morris would make some throws where you're like, this guy is special. This guy is going to be like a top 2 round pick. And Kosi's made a couple of those, and I don't think he's done it consistently enough. And all the changeover at coordinator is obviously not helping him very much. But I think we're going to bring somebody in, and hopefully Kosi stays to battle it out, and we see whoever's the best fit.
Yeah, I'm going to the portal if King leaves. With what we're showing right now, we should have our pick of whoever's available. And if no one's available or we don't like the options, it's nice to have kind of that fallback option as Perry, who's an experienced quarterback. He's had some ups, a lot of downs, but he certainly has the physical talent. It's just a matter of putting it all together within an offense and being able to lead that offense. But if Lashley's here, that's a great selling point to a 1-year grad transfer quarterback. Come here, dominate just like King did, and then go to the NFL.
All right, man. I think we've gotten everything from top to bottom. One more question, guys. You don't have to give me a prediction. More of what are your expectations for this Miami versus Clemson game? Obviously, I'm feeling better about the game. The last couple times we've faced Clemson, we've got ran out of the gym. I haven't even watched Clemson this year. I'm gonna go back and watch the Wake Forest game, and I think they play Virginia this year. But we know they got talent. I've already heard about their D-line. They got a couple freshman dogs on that D-line in Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy. But I want to do my due diligence and watch them before I give a full prediction. But what are your expectations for the game, and what would satisfy you for the game?
It's, I don't want to, especially this early, talk about like moral victories when we're not even into it, especially not even into game week. I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a major, major problem for us because he runs the ball, surprisingly well. He's got this arm that is, he could put it in the end zone on the fly from, his own 40 without even thinking about it, and having Amari Carter back there without having Gervin Hall is already going to put us at a disadvantage. We like to run our corners man, and if we're not being physical with those Clemson guys, they can run right by us. That's another thing to be worried about. And then at the end, at running back, it's going to be a whole nother level of speed to kind of account for from our second level. So there's a lot to think about with even just a Clemson offense. I think we're going to need to score, and I think we will. I think as good as Venables is, I think we'll be able to figure out ways of scoring. We just have to keep them under like a number that isn't absurd. Like we got to if we can keep them under 35, if we can keep them in that range, we have a shot. If they're putting up 40 plus, it's going to be hard for us, the offense, to have to keep responding, which they've done so far. But it's hard to keep up with a team like that.
Yeah, Clemson's on another level. You can tell by their recruiting, how they've looked so far this year. They've dominated every opponent, from the get-go. They have a generational quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who doesn't miss often. It's going to pose a real problem, for our secondary. Travis Etienne at running back is explosive. If he gets, a crease, he's gone. So Blake Baker, Manny Diaz are really going to have to come up with something special to try and at least slow that offense down. But on the optimistic side, I think Lashley and King are going to give us a puncher's chance in this one. That combination of those two, they can do special things. King's athleticism, even if the wrong play is called or a play breaks down, he can still move the chains or create a big play out of nothing. So I think we'll see that, and that'll allow us to at least kind of stay in the game. But I think Clemson's going to be way too much for us to handle. I'm not a big fan of moral victories either. But I think if we can be competitive into the fourth quarter, keep it within, a 2-possession type game, that'll really build our confidence and show that we're almost there. Not quite. We still need to have some work to do recruiting. But if we can keep it within, 10, 14 points, I think that's a good thing for us going forward.
I know on that point too, like you said about planning the defense, like what if we just went into this game like full on Manny does the whole thing. Manny calls defense front to back, not as a shot.
They don't want to see that.
They
don't want to see Manny as a could.
Just give them something different than what. So like all the tape they've studied this year, they really would have to prepare for that 2017 defense, and that 2017 defense caused a lot of problems. So maybe just send Manny out there full go as the coordinator and see what he could do.
Do you guys see us getting blown out?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because I think we could score, and even if our scores are going to be these drives where maybe they're not, like maybe we're down by 2 touchdowns, we get a field goal, they get a field goal, we score a touchdown, maybe we're not like within striking distance. I don't think we're going to get blown out. I think this offense is too good and Lashley's too smart to be held down for an entire game.
Agreed. It's possible. Clemson's that good of a team, but Lashley King, they'll score points. They'll keep us in it. If the defense can get stops or even kind of implement that bend but don't break, give up a field goal instead of a touchdown, and just kind of keep shortening the game, into the latter, parts of the fourth quarter. We'll have a chance. But again, this team's number one for a reason. They have, really good football players. So it's going to be a tough one for us.
I'll say a couple early things that I'm looking at is just a couple. Like I have this philosophy, what King is an X factor. So I know we're going up against Brett Venables, but the thing about it is Brett can call the perfect play, but with King's ability to scramble and to show his ability to throw, he has that X factor to where you can call the right play and it still not get executed properly because King can beat that. I think that's something that Miami fans should be excited about. I'm thinking I don't see anybody stopping our run game because once again, if you hold the ball out, you've got to choose either Cameron Harris, who's one of the top running backs in the nation to start the season off, or De'Aaron King, who can take it out. So if you got a running game and like you said, you can score, that's going to be big. Another thing is I'm wondering how the atmosphere will be because, Clemson, they're known for Death Valley, right? But if there's not going to be a lot of fans there or if they don't allow fans, then I don't think Death Valley has the same atmosphere, which in turn helps us out.
Yeah, for sure. That's a factor too. Is maybe we got used to playing in a building like everyone made the joke about Miami's playing like in front of the normal crowd with all the limitations and all, but we know what it's like to play in front of a relatively sparse crowd. Maybe Clemson doesn't. Maybe that little bit of extra energy that they would get from Death Valley, they're still this dominant force of nature team, but just a little bit, just any little thing we could take as a possible way of getting by, I think it's a positive to look for and gives us another 1/2 percentage point more of a shot. And, I'll take it.
Yeah, that it wouldn't surprise me to see Clemson have more fans than they normally would, just as COVID restrictions are easing, around the country. And I'm assuming this is going to be a primetime ABC game, with game day there. So even though it may not be a full stadium, I think it's still going to be an electric atmosphere. But even that could feed into our players. That can get them all jacked up, excited. They should come out with a chip on their shoulder against Clemson, who, is this kind of dominant force, the last 4 or 5 years. So we have a lot to shoot for. But at the end of the day, they're a talented team, and we're going to have to bring our A++ game to pull it out.
Yeah, and this is a team, this is a program that was built on knocking off number one teams. We did it late 70s all through the 80s. And I think it was 8-0 against number one teams through the course of the 80s. Like that's a crazy number, but that's how we built the program, beating these teams we weren't supposed to beat, and kind of forcing our way into the conversation. So, what the heck? We start another tradition now. We knock Clemson off.
The opportunity will be there to make a statement.
Hey, man. Hey, third straight primetime game. We're assuming it's going to be the third one. We got a week to prepare. So I'm excited, man. But, hey, biggest thing is Canes fans 3-0. We beat our rivalry, beat them down, destroyed them, and I'm feeling good, man. What do you guys got going on with Canes Legacy and Canes Insight to get ready for this big-time game? I've already seen y'all post a lot of information about what happened last night, so tell the people about what y'all got going on.
Well, we'll definitely make fun of Florida State for a couple more days because, with going into the bye week gives a little bit more time just to mock how terrible they were this past weekend. So we're going to look forward to that for sure. But like going into the Clemson game, we're, looking back at all these games against number one teams that I just mentioned before, like that's something we definitely want to do because, not every one of them was, number one versus number 3 Miami. Some of them we were a little bit more lowly ranked and, surprise some people. So, giving some insight on that, because it's easy to assume that Miami was always, the favorite in these contests, but it really wasn't true. So going back and reminding people that we have shocked the world on occasion, and we have gone into other buildings and done some significant damage. So we want to make sure that everybody remembers that. This is a program that can do some crazy things, when people are betting against us. So we'll put some of those out there for sure before we get to next week.
Yeah, we're going to take a hard look at Clemson too, since we do have a bye week this week and they're playing Virginia, who hopefully will at least challenge them a little bit, so that we can kind of see what Clemson's going to do when they're not up 32-0 after a couple minutes into the game. But we'll look to see what we can do to beat them, any weaknesses that Miami could potentially exploit, and then we'll get ready for the biggest game of the year.
All right, man. Hey, y'all make sure y'all check out the guys at Kane's Legacy. And, man, hey, I appreciate y'all doing this for me, man. And we'll see you guys next week. Or, wait, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now.
Sounds good, Grant. Thanks for having us on.